All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our special open board budget meeting of the 6th of April, 2023. I would like to begin by recognizing and acknowledging both the Esquimalt and the Songhees nations on whose traditional territories we live, we learn, and we do our work. Welcome, everyone. I wonder if I might have approval of the agenda. May I have a mover? Thank you, Trustee Kwan. And a seconder, Trustee Mabobi, thank you. I know we have one section of the agenda that we do need to amend by adding a new B to the agenda. So it would be notice of motions, and then adjournment would fall to the next section. Adjournment would become E. Are there any other amendments to the agenda? Trustee McNally, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. My understanding is possibly the notice of motion is intended to be a motion from the floor and to be considered at this meeting rather than notice for a meeting in the future. You might want to check with the mover.
Okay, I think what I'll do is we've added it, and so it gives some flexibility to whomever would or decides not to add a notice of motion. I think this for this meeting, what I anticipate is that we'll be focused on the numbers on the budget, and then at the end of the month at our regular April board meeting, I know that there'll be a number of advocacy related motions that will be coming to that meeting that are related to budget. But so yeah, what I'll do is I'll just, if the Assembly agrees, we'll add the section to give folks the option of either adding a notice of motion at the end of the meeting or not. And I'll let folks decide what they want to do once we've had a little further discussion. So with that, we have an amendment to the agenda. So if there's any discussion regarding that beyond Trustee McNally's point, let's have that now. All right, hearing none. So let's first vote on the amendment. So all those in favor of the amended agenda, or the amendment rather to the agenda, and that is unanimous. And now we have all those in favor of the amended agenda. And that is unanimous again. Thank you. All right, folks. So tonight we do have a correspondence section again. This is correspondence that we saw in the previous packet from the 4th. It's at B1. Again, it is your right to pull anything for discussion if you so wish. If not, then we'll move right into C, our annual budget discussion. Okay, so we're going to move into C, which is our 2023-24 annual budget discussion. What I'd like to do, we do have in this agenda package a new memo from our Secretary Treasurer, because there have already been some changes in terms of additional funding from the province. So what I'd like to begin with is just a moment to allow the Secretary Treasurer to go over the memo, and then there'll be an opportunity for some questions and further discussion. So Secretary Treasurer, go ahead.
Great, thank you, Chair. Yeah, included in the agenda package, I've put in a memo. Most of the items that are in there we spoke to in the meeting, but hadn't documented in the memo because they happened after the agenda package was sent out. So, for example, there was a new special purpose fund, the Feeding Futures food program, that was announced by the ministry on April 4th. The district will be receiving an allocation of $2,253,290. And so what we've done is gone into the draft 23-24 annual budget, the ministry template, and updated the special purpose funds for that new funding. So that will be Schedule 3 and Schedule 3A. And so we've included that updated ministry template. It's the very last attachment in the agenda package. What that does is it also changes the bylaw, because included in the bylaw are the expenses for all of the funds. And so the bylaw that was presented at the last meeting has now gone up by the amount of that funding. And so in that unbalanced ministry template, you can now see a budget bylaw amount reflected of $302,434,345. And then, similar to what we did on Tuesday, we took those balancing initiatives that were recommended and updated the bylaw so that it was balanced. And so the new balanced budget bylaw amount is $300,601,593. So that's the number that's currently reflected on the cover sheet of the agenda package. But what will happen is, as we discuss the budget, if things are taken out or added in or adjusted, then that number will change. We do have a spreadsheet. We're going to try and keep track of all the changes so that we can give you the revised budget amount as we work our way through. And I think that's all I have to say about the changes at the moment. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Secretary Treasurer. It's much appreciated. I know you and your staff are working hard to pull all of this together very, very quickly for us. So thank you very much. Trustees, do we have any questions for the Secretary Treasurer in relation to that memo? Okay. All right, so I want to, before we get in, last time we tabled our bylaw readings because we knew we had some further work that we needed to do. So I know we've come prepared to make some further changes, and then, you know, our hope, of course, is to be in a position then to complete all 3 bylaw readings, again, at the will of the Assembly. So what I wanted to do before we get into our discussion is just to give trustees an opportunity to ask any further questions that you might have before we start moving motions. Trustee Kwan, go ahead.
Thank you. And I apologize for not thinking of this ahead of time because it has been on this spreadsheet for a while. But I wondered if we could have a little more information on that one line that's in reductions one time under facility services various. I know it's been rolled up, but I wondered if we could get just a little more clarity on what that actually entails.
Thank you, Trustee Kwan. I don't know who's best placed to answer that question, whether it's the Secretary Treasurer or Associate Secretary Treasurer, or someone else. Yeah, go ahead, Secretary Treasurer Stride.
I can provide more of a high-level overview, and then if you want more details, probably either the Associate Secretary Treasurer or the Director of Facilities could jump in. The high level is that most of it is facilities is able to shift its projects. So if in one year they have a lot of projects that are going on that is out of operating funding, then there would be staffing and operating that would be used for those projects. What they're suggesting is that they actually focus next year on projects that are funded with capital funding. And so we can shift some of those operating employees into jobs that would be funded by capital instead of operating. So that does relieve the operating budget, but only for the 1 year. And I believe there's also a few things that they would delay. For example, there's fleet vehicles that the department leases. And so some of the leases have come up and they're ended. And they're suggesting that they could delay leasing new vehicles, which would free up some budget. Portable moves is something that's budgeted annually, and they're not anticipating that there will be any portable moves at this time for next year. So that could be freed up for 1 year. And they also have a staff member, I believe they're expecting a retirement, and so they're going to hold off on replacing that person for the, and Marty might have better timing, but for the remainder of the year. That's all I have on that. I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that.
Okay.
Can I just add something to that, please?
Yeah,
I just
please
want to
do.
stress that this is only for 1 year. Like, we really have to work at moving all the projects and allocating that budget. So it's quite a switch for us and quite a schedule that we have to do. So there still will definitely be projects done within the schools, but it is quite a shift for us and a lot of work for us to do this. So we definitely want this only for 1 year, please.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, no, and your efforts are really appreciated. Both yours and your team's efforts are much appreciated. Okay, any other questions, trustees? And just bear with me. I'm going to be a little slower today because I am moving between two screens of smiling faces mostly at this point. Just so if I miss your hand, just let me know. Okay. Okay, so if we don't have any other, well, if we don't have any questions at this point, then what I'm going to do is, I know we have a series of changes that we want to make. And so I think now is the time for us to start to do that. There is a couple of changes that I wanted to propose to folks. And these relate to this would be essentially a reallocation of budget. So let me just go. So I'm going to kick us off. And it might be easiest if what I do is I just read out what I've got. So what I want to suggest is that we reduce the balance of the ISP labor settlement by the additional 2/3 in the amount of $345,354 be reallocated to fund 5 FTE elementary middle custodians with 5 a.m. starts for a total of an additional $137,767 instead of the 3 FTE afternoon custodial shifts. So essentially what it would be doing is combining the $208,362, which is currently allocated in the recommendation from staff, to 3 FTE afternoon custodians, eliminating that and adding that along with $137,767 in order to fund a 5. So basically half of what we were hoping to be able to fund. So reintroducing those daytime custodians and doing it with the 5 a.m. shifts. And then the balance of that amount, which is $207,587, it would be reallocated to middle school music. And so what that would do would be it would leave a balance of around 18,000 still, a little over 18,000 in middle school music cuts. So if that is sufficiently clear, I just want to clarify with the Secretary Treasurer that I've got all the numbers right in terms of what we'd be starting with. So the additional 2/3 would result in $345,554. I'll just let you find that number and then let me know when you're ready.
So then the total labor settlement funding in international education is $518,030 between regular and short term. And so you're proposing to reduce the full amount?
Right. Okay. So I think we had built in a third, reducing a third, which was 170. Sorry, I've got my calculations here and there, but I think it was 173 or 175. Let me just go back and double check the number. was 172,677, which was a third according to the memo. And so you're saying that the balance was, let me just find out exactly what we're working with here. Make sure that my numbers are correct. So yeah, I think I was $1 over. So it would be 345,353 rather than 354.
And then can you just confirm what you have for a total funding for the 5 daytime shift?
Yes. So the total funding for the daytime shifts would be, sorry, just bear with me a second. Gotta go back to that number. It would be 346,129. And I realize that's our best estimate to this point, that there may be some variation in that. Okay.
And oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
18,000 in music, middle music.
That's what's left. So, okay, so we'll go back and so, okay, so the balance. So once we reallocate 208,362, which was the amount to fund 3 FTE afternoon custodial shifts, we combine it with 137,767 from the ISP reallocation. We're left with a balance from the ISP reallocation of 207,587, which would go to fund middle school music, and that would leave still a shortfall in terms of middle school music of 18,000. Sorry, just let me go back and I can get you an exact number.
I've got 18,863.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Yeah, so there'd still be a shortfall, but it would be, relatively minor shortfall, considering the size of the program. So I hope that is clear. I know it's a bit convoluted because we're taking and we're reallocating to a couple of different line items, but I think, is that sufficiently clear to you, Secretary Treasurer, in terms of what I'm trying to suggest that we do? Okay. All right, colleagues, I wonder if anybody would be interested in seconding. Trustee McNally, okay, thank you. Okay, so, oh, sorry, Trustee McNally, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So thank you for all that work. What is the actual impact on middle school music? This is a step in the right direction, but even though I've seconded the motion, I'm not sure that, I'm enthusiastic about it. So if you could explain that part, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. So essentially, what was anticipated by the current suggestion is a further 20% cut. So last year we cut middle school music, and there was in this budget a suggested further 20% cut to middle school music, and resulting the amount of that cut, the 20% reduction would be 226,450. So with the reallocation fund middle school music, it means that essentially at this point, we would only need to cut 18,000 rather than the 20%, which is 226,450. So it means essentially a very minor cut. Sorry, Secretary Treasurer, I'm assuming you're not actually trying to clap. But thank you, that would be a very unusual of you. A little levity, a little humor that lighten the mood. Yeah, so Trustee McNally, does that clarify essentially how the impact?
It does. If I could just follow up and say, does this have any effect on the hub concept that has come forward? And that's my last word on this.
It would, well, we just wouldn't be doing any kind of hub. So right now what's contemplated is a 20% reduction. Essentially, we wouldn't need to reduce it other than, you know, the 18,000 and change that is still unfunded. But it's a relatively, you know, minor reduction compared to where we started. And there would be no hub model or anything like that introduced. And then in terms of the custodial, the daytime custodial shifts, you know, in our ideal scenario, we would be reintroducing all, you know, 10 FTE, and we would be doing it in the morning because of the impacts of that additional cleaning that can go on, you know, early before anything else happens, and also the additional assistance that morning custodial shifts provide in terms of just preparing the school for the day. And so what we heard during the consultation period was the importance, like the other impacts that having daytime custodians results in, both for administrators' time, for grounds people's time, and also for the evening custodial shift. Having that morning custodial time really helps to lighten the burden of the long runs in the evening. So that's why I'm suggesting that we reallocate some of this money to support that. So I see there's questions. Trustee McNally, go ahead. And then I think it was, again, bear with me, folks, I think it was Trustee Gagnon, Trustee Kwan, and then Trustee Painter.
Thank you, Chair. I'm in favor of what you've just suggested, but we do have a motion on the floor. I seconded it, and I think we need to deal with that one before we go into facilities.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm assuming hands are related to the motion on the floor, but if they're not, then we can, yeah. Secretary Treasurer, did you have something that you wanted to add?
I'm just wondering if it would not be out of line to have, like Jeff is here to be able to speak to that impact, because we haven't addressed the full amount, just the 1/3 amount. I also, like, I do have some information as well around that, but he may be able to speak better to it.
Yeah, and I think what we can do too before trustees begin, I think we can also offer an opportunity for our partners around the table, our stakeholders around the table to comment as well before we get into debate. Or kind of would result in us relaxing the rules a little bit, but unless I have any objections from my colleagues, then I think we're doing this, you know, on the fly, so to speak. And so I think that would be appropriate, unless there's any objections from my colleagues. Okay. So I've got an order in terms of trustees, but before we kick off, let's go to our stakeholders and also to Mr. Davis. So why don't we start with Mr. Davis? Thanks for joining us. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Oh, wow. Through the chair. Thank you for the opportunity. There's a few considerations with this motion. I think the original presentation by staff to spread this out over 3 years would give international the opportunity for the effects of COVID to shake out. That being, currently our agent fees are quite high, and that's because we have a lot more students coming for 1 year rather than multiple years and to graduate. So I think the original proposal would be a lot more palatable in terms of international not going into deficit. As it stands, we would be in a pretty tough spot and would be certainly in deficit at the end of the year because we could not afford a $550,000 hit all at once. Over 3 years, more students will be coming for longer term, and the agent fee would come down as a result, because students who come for 3 years in the second and third or longer, we do not pay an agent fee. I think I'll leave it at that. If I have any other considerations, I'll jump in, but let me just have a look. I made some notes. No, I think that'll cover it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davis. Okay, so I'm going to open the floor to our stakeholders. President Humphreys, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thanks, and I won't take very much time because I'm sorry that I missed the last meeting. I had some chaos going on. And I just couldn't even turn on the camera. But because of that, I'm feeling sort of a little bit behind on all of this. I just wanted to comment on the custodial and to thank you for looking at daytime, a way to bring in daytime custodians, because I was very concerned to see that that was not one of the recommendations. I mean, it was at the public meetings and everything I see in schools and hear, you know, schools are really, really in need of custodians during the day. It gets quite dirty. And, you know, for so many, I'm not going to, you know, all of you have heard all of the reasons why, but I just wanted to really support the idea of bringing in some daytime custodians. I'm not sure that I'm well placed to comment on whether the way you're trying to juggle it is the right path, but it's really important to do that. So thank you.
Thank you, President Humphreys. Much appreciated. Okay, I just want to, again, if I've missed anybody, again, if the floor is open to stakeholders that would like to comment before I move into my, discussion with my colleagues. I don't see anybody, but please let me know if I've missed you. Okay, so Trustee Gagnon, you were first, I think, then Trustee Kwan, and then Trustee Painter. I think that's everybody on the speakers list. So go ahead, Trustee Gagnon, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I just noticed that Mr. Davis had briefly put up his hand there and wanted to know if he had something further to say before I get into my piece.
Thank you very much. Mr. Davis, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yes, I did. I just wanted to also make sure that it was well understood that we're still in a position for 23-24 where we're still actively recruiting students to come, and that we're still we have students that we need to meet our target for September, for February, for April. If we're not able to meet those targets, then we don't meet our budgetary commitments. So again, just once again stating that I think that this big, very large change would have a pretty dramatic effect, and it would make our operations very challenging. I don't quite understand. I'm just trying to wrap my head around how we would make it all work. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Just a point of clarification, Secretary Treasurer, the increase in international student fees that the board approved, I believe it was $1,000 per student increase in fees. Could you remind the board just of what the projected increased revenue from that increased fees is for the 23-24 financial year?
For that piece alone, I believe Jeff was estimating 925 regular students, so it would be 925,000.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thanks to that context, Trustee Gagnon, and thanks so much for assisting me by noticing Mr. Davis. Oh, and sorry, I think Associate Secretary Treasurer Lettner would just like to speak to that as well. And then I will get to you, Trustee Gagnon. Thank you for your patience. Go ahead, Associate Secretary Treasurer.
Thank you. So through the chair, the $1,000 per student increase works out to be about a 6.67% increase on fees. However, staffing, wages and benefits have gone up actually higher than what the ministry or what the fee increase is. So I think to add on to Mr. Davis's comment, it would be really incredibly tight for them to try to make it work, just because their fees haven't increased the same amount proportionate to the collective agreement salary increases.
Yeah, no, appreciate that, but thanks for clarifying that. Okay, so Trustee Gagnon, go ahead. The floor is yours. I promise.
Thank you, Chair. In case unless there's anyone else, and if there is, by all means, I just wanted to ask a point of clarification around. I either misinterpreted one thing or another, but I'm wanting to know if we're going from a reduction of a third to a like full, or we're going from 1/3 to 2/3.
So the clarification, yeah, that's a good point. And we're going from full, so from a third to full. So
Okay.
yeah.
And a kind of unrelated follow-up was that I am definitely all for adding the daytime custodians. I think that that's the right decision to go with in contrast to the afternoon custodians. I don't love that it still results in a cut to middle school music. I would rather see that not get touched. And if that meant going from, say, 5 daytime custodians to 4, that is something that I would rather consider. But at the same time, I would love to have 10 daytime custodians, but the budget doesn't let me. So yeah, I think I would probably rather not touch music at all and alter the custodian effort. But that's my thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gagnon. Trustee Kwan and then Trustee Painter.
Yeah, thanks. I actually had something similar to Trustee Gagnon. I do want to clarify again that international education, because I believe we went to 2/3, and that made the line item 345,354, and that's 2/3. If we go full, I believe it's, let me just get the number here, 518 and 31. So I think we're still 2/3 there, as far as unless I'm doing some kind of calculations wrong. Is that correct? We're 2/3.
No, that was not my intention. It was the full 500. That's what would be required in order to fully, well, with the exception of 18,000, fully fund middle school music, and then fund half of the daytime custodians that we wanted to see reintroduced.
Right, because if we took 172,677 and did that, 3 times, it's actually 518. Is that right? Yeah,
That's right.
It is. If I may, Chair, the 1/3 has already been calculated into cost savings.
I see.
So,
you're adding that. Gotcha. Okay, that's what I missed. That's the piece I was missing. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So my second point was actually very similar to Trustee Gagnon. And I think we can manage it afterwards. We could leave 18,000 in the middle school, but I think that we can deal with that. I mean, I think, from what I've heard from colleagues and also the Budget Advisory Committee, I think we can reduce that 18 further, and I'm okay with reducing even the contingency by 18 if we can't find it anywhere else. But I think leaving 18 in there for now is okay, and we can touch that again and find a different way to deal with that one. And I would definitely, I wouldn't approve this motion, or put my hand up for it unless I knew that I could reduce middle school music, the cut to middle school music even further. So.
Thank you, Trustee Kwan. Trustee Painter, go ahead.
thank you, Chair. I had some questions of clarification for Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis, could you actually give us a bit of a breakdown over recent years? And I appreciate COVID probably threw a spanner in the works, but even if you're going prior to that, regarding the breakdown of multi-year students versus those attending for shorter periods, because it's been my understanding that the multi-years were the exception rather than the rule in the old days.
Yes, thank you, Trustee Painter, through the chair. Yeah, historically, pre-COVID, we were typically 75% of our long-term student enrollment, 75 to 80 even, in some years would be coming for multiple years on the graduation program or attending elementary school or middle school for multiple years leading into secondary. So 20 to 25% would be coming for 6 months to 1 year on what we call an experience program, language development program, with COVID, everything shifted, and the regions that were sending students to Victoria changed, and it went to almost a 50-50 last year. And I was just looking at it last week, and I believe it was 55 to 45, 55 long-term, 45 experience. So it is starting to already shift back towards the graduation program students, but I think that'll take a couple more years. And it is also extremely competitive right now in the international education domain, with Australia and New Zealand opening up, and new regions also doing focusing on international students, places that haven't done it before, like Japan. So it is the international education sector is changing a lot, but I do think that it is going to shift back to more students coming from multiple years over the next 2 to 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Okay, I'm just looking to colleagues to see if anybody else has anything that they wanted to say or questions of clarification. And then if not, then I will briefly close. Don't see any hands, so unless I've missed any. Oh, Trustee McNally. Thank you. That helps, actually, a little wave. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is a question for actually for my colleague, Trustee Kwan, and I'm wondering if she wanted to make an amendment to this motion regarding topping up that 18,000 from contingency.
Yep, Trustee Kwan, go ahead.
Yeah, either way is fine with me. I mean, we could add to this motion and say we reduce middle school music all the way and put that extra $18,000 to contingency. If I don't know if we need to actually vote on that amendment, or if we want to do a friendly. I don't know if it's too much for a friendly. It's better to have a vote, I think.
We need to have it specified and voted on so
Okay,
that
great.
it's really clear in minutes what we decided to do, and we can follow up that it was actually done. So
Great.
are we making an amendment?
I'm making an amendment.
Okay, so the amendment, just to clarify, is that the 800, and Secretary Treasurer, would you just remind me of the exact amount of the balance?
It actually is 18,864 with that extra dollar.
Okay, 18,864, which is the balance left in middle school music requiring funding, would come from the board contingency. Okay, so who would like to second that?
Oh, I moved it.
Trustee Gagnon. Okay, thank you. All right, so Trustee Kwan, did you want to motivate?
I think I probably said everything, and Trustee Gagnon also said, so I'm happy to hear from others if they have anything.
Okay, yeah, so I'm just going to open the floor up then to discussion regarding the amendments to the motion on the floor. Would anybody like to speak to the amendment? Okay, all right, then I'm going to call the vote. Oh, Trustee McNally, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to move it along by saying I'm in favor.
All right, so I'm going to call the vote then. Thank you, Trustee McNally. All those in favor of the amendment to the motion with a show of hands. If you just keep your hands up a little longer than usual. Thank you, that is unanimous. Okay, so we're back to the main motion. Do we have any other speakers to the main motion before I close? Okay. Oh, yeah, Trustee Bayo. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I also thinking about, ideally we would want 10 custodians, but I know that it's been difficult to hire custodians, so it might not even be achievable in the next little while that we can find those people. So I think 5 is a good start when we don't even know for certain that we'll get all 5 people. We just really hope that we do.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, thank you, Trustee Bayo. Anybody else before I close? Okay, So I just wanted to sort of clarify in my closing a couple of things. One being that certainly we would love to be able to fund all 10, and we heard very loudly and clearly during the consultation period and from our stakeholders about the importance of or the impacts really, and so the importance of reintroducing those daytime custodians. And the kind of ripple effect that we've seen throughout our district, everything from health and safety concerns to administrators having to deal with, biohazards and cleaning, or other staff people having to step in, to the impact on the evening custodians, and really in terms of just the sheer, the length of the size of the runs. So, really, I do empathize. I know that it's difficult in 1 year for ISP to be totally self-sufficient when it comes to this, but I'm also minded that we have increased fees, and that's going to go a long way to getting there. But I also appreciate that there's going to be some belt tightening potentially that will be required as well. But I think it's just difficult because the reality is we have to set priorities, and to me, that it's a very, very high priority around the need for daytime custodians. And we've heard very loud and clear from our students, from parents, from staff, that we want to see the robust middle school music program continue. So this is just really one of the only strategies I could see to achieve this. So yeah, hopefully folks agree that this is a good strategy and a way to move a couple of important priority areas forward. All right, thank you for your time. I think it's time to vote, folks. So all those in favor of the motion on the floor with a show of hands. And again, if you wouldn't mind just leaving your hands up a little longer. And that is unanimous. All right, thank you, folks. Okay, so just looking to my colleagues, and I believe that there's a few other things that we wanted to do tonight in terms of amending the proposal that was for us on the 4th. So I'm wondering if any colleagues have anything that they wish to move. Trustee Kwan, go ahead. Oh, sorry, you're muted, Trustee Kwan.
Sorry, it didn't click the first time. My apologies.
No
So we've dealt with middle school music. Let's move to elementary strings and get that out of the way as well. So I think currently what we have on the additions ongoing is 91,675. And then we have 7 schools with prep and 5 schools in a hub. I would actually like to see a very different look to that. So I would suggest in putting back pretty much everything, but I would love to see a prep pilot program going on. So correct me, I only have the amount that the amount that came, the net amount after doing the prep, but I know that I have sent it. So the amount that would be on elementary strings with prep at 6 schools would be 205,351 that we would be adding back into the budget. And further to that, my suggestion would be that I think that there's going to be other things that happen. So what I would like to see for now is actually just moving that to the contingency and seeing where we can find savings as other items come up throughout the night.
Okay. So Secretary Treasurer, could you would you maybe help us just with clarifying, the where we are in terms of balances? Yeah.
Okay, so adding elementary strings, prep 6 schools, everything else back. The net difference is 205,351. So that's added in. The 91,675 that was already there would come out. And then we have a difference of 113,676. And
so that would be the amount coming from the contingency then at this point? Yeah, okay.
so the contingency is now, the use of contingency is now up to 632,540.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. So Trustee Kwan, did you want to make a suggestion beyond that, or we're just going to start with taking it from contingency and then sort of see where things go?
Yeah, I suspect
Okay.
that there's things that trustees still want to see and do, and so that would be my suggestion. Instead of, I feel like if we don't do it that way, then it's going to get quite muddled. So I think, you know, other changes could, you know, reduce and add and reduce and add. So that was my suggestion, is just to use that contingency at work, see where it goes.
Sounds good. Okay, so we're clear. Yeah, Trustee McNally, go ahead. Were you seconding?
I just want to make sure that we have a motion on the floor that's clearly articulated and not just a suggestion.
Yeah,
Is
I
that-
understand that Trustee Kwan is moving a motion to fund to fund middle school music with 6 prep. And then we have clarified that the amount that would need to come from contingency is $113,676.
Okay, thanks.
And so just to clarify, so the amount, the cost of doing that is $205,361. We had a balance of $95,301. And that's how we ended up with $113,676 coming from contingency. Okay, so we have a seconder. So I'll second that. Oh, Trustee Mabovi, you're going to second that? Great. Okay, Trustee Mabovi is our seconder. Okay, sorry, Secretary Treasurer, go ahead. And then Trustee Gagnon, I see your hand up.
I think this is just a typo, but it should be 205,351 for this stream.
51, okay, thank you. And are the rest of the totals correct? So 113,676 would be what comes from contingency? Oh, sorry, you're muted.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Trustee Gagnon, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify, because I believe you said middle school music, but we were talking
did
about
I?
elementary strings.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, it is elementary strings indeed. And thank you.
Okay.
I didn't even notice my error. Trustee Painter, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. The option of going to prep at 6 schools has me a little confused, because during our previous budget advisory discussions, the appeal of prep was that it was included and that we wouldn't be paying anything. So if we're going to the hub model, then we're talking about outside of schedule at the 6 schools, and it's 205. When I look at the
Sorry, Trustee Painter, just want to clarify before you continue. So that what's being proposed here is not a hub model. It would be funding. It would be funding strings. It would be funding it using really testing using 6 preps. So 6 schools using prep to fund it. So of the 25, I think it's 25 schools currently in the last school year that had strings. What we'd be looking to do is to test the idea of using prep in 6 schools. And then the balance would be funded.
right. So I just went into our notes from budget advisory, and the cost of the current program across 26 schools is $232,000. So for less than 25,000 difference. Like I'm clearly not getting what we're talking about, because if we're going into prep, then unless we have to hire additional music teachers who aren't covered, well, they're going to be covered if it's in prep. So
Yeah.
I'd really
Gotcha.
like some clarification on this. You might have to start at the start and walk me through it again.
No, not at all. That's a great question. And I'm sorry, I wasn't following you initially. I understand what you're pointing out. So Associate Secretary Treasurer, are you able to shed some light just on how we would calculate the cost of funding the balance? So, and how much, yeah, if you could help us through how we would calculate the cost.
Through the chair, so I was going to speak to Trustee Painter's comment about the difference in the Budget Advisory Committee meetings in the cost. That was based on the current 22-23 school year, whereas the what we're working with right now is the increased cost with the staff salary increases.
So Associate Secretary Treasurer, so in today's dollars with the increased staffing cost, if we were to fully fund, is it 25 or 26 schools for this year?
Let me just have a quick look.
Okay.
It's 26. I have the document in front of me.
Okay.
Well, this current year.
Yeah. So if we were to fund the 26 schools, then at current costs, what would that look like? Just to give Trustee Painter an idea of the current cost.
$258,485.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Trustee Painter, you had a follow-up, and then
Thank you, Chair. The other part of the question was, why does inclusion of strings in prep cost anything if the cost was associated with teaching and teacher coverage would be included in the prep?
Thank you. I'm not sure who's best placed to answer that question. Trustee Kwan, go ahead.
Yeah, so it doesn't cost anything, which is why it reduces the amount of we're adding back in for prep. So originally for a full prep to be added back in, it was $258,485. But if we're moving 6 schools to prep, we're actually only adding back $205,351.
But what is that cost associated with? Because the cost of the music program was staff time, but if it's in prep, then that
so we're
staff
not
time is
doing
covered.
a full prep. We're doing 6 schools of prep, and any other schools that would want prep would have it outside of the timetable. And actually,
Okay,
I believe
that I didn't understand. So you're
Cindy can
saying
speak more to why that is.
so all the other schools, the other 21 schools,
Exactly. Yes.
would have. Okay, that was not
Draw
clear.
from that,
Thank you
yes.
very much.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay.
Okay. I do note, Cindy, you have your hand up. So if you can shed some light on the discussion, that would be helpful. Go ahead.
Well, my concern is with prep coverage, I believe there is collective agreement language, how prep time is covered in that if there's a subject already determined, like PE, for example, I don't think you can get rid of PE and replace it with strings, and there's a process through staff committee, but I think so. I just wanted to point that out, that at these 6 schools, they would still have to go through the staff process committee and choosing strings as that prep. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, and that's my understanding as well, is that we'd be looking at to look to 6 schools to agree to have strings in prep in order to pilot offering strings using prep. So yeah. I want to just look, see if there's any other partners. I'm sorry, I should have actually called on partners to speak to this, and that was my mistake. I didn't give you an opportunity before trustees kicked off our discussions, so apologies. President Humphries, did you want to comment on this before we get too far down the track?
Of course I do. I just, I'm just here to say that obviously we're strongly opposed to another year of cuts to any music programs. And so really like this idea. It's very innovative. And hopefully it will fly, because that would be great. Now, oh yes, and we did have a question and I guess it's not related to this motion specifically, but in the other scenario, what happens to teachers' jobs?
Sorry, and just to clarify, in the other scenario, you mean in terms of what's proposed currently?
Yeah.
In the staff recommendations?
Yes. Yeah.
And I mean, maybe the superintendent's best place to speak to that. Microphone's not cooperating. So the question, no problem. So the question was, in the current proposal, what would happen to the staff jobs? What would happen to the staff jobs?
I'm trying to understand why there may be cuts. I understand that adding back continuing with the strings program in the 20 or 21 schools would continue with the staffing that we currently have in place, and the prep would be the prep teachers. So do you mean for the 6 schools that would be embedding this within prep?
No, thanks. No, actually, I more was talking about if this didn't pass and the actual proposal that was put forward, what would that look like? Like how many staff would lose positions?
Yeah, so the current proposal being a prep in 7 schools and then a hub in 5.
I think we would have to look into that, as it depends on the level of staffing that's in the 5 hubs. So perhaps Julie had that information as the wages were put forward, or we'll have to look into that and get back to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a big thing. I just was, it's important to us, that those people are really critical parts of the school communities. So we're always concerned.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, so trustees, thanks for your patience. And again, apologies to the partners. I will endeavor to call on you first for the remainder of the meeting. Trustee McNally, go ahead.
Thank you. So if we're piloting a way of delivering music, am I right so far? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So if we're piloting it, why are we piloting it? I would think that, if the board pilots some endeavor, that the board would want to evaluate the success of that endeavor as opposed to another model, and then be able to choose which seems to be best for students. So I have that question, because it's a pilot. How will it be evaluated? And secondly, I'm still having trouble with the hub concept, and usually in life I've found out that if I'm not the only one. So I'd appreciate just a bit more explanation about that. So 2 things.
Let me just, I'm going to let Trustee Kwan speak to the intention around the pilots. And then I'm going to go to Associate Superintendent Arts, who I believe was able to provide us with some explanation around how the hub model would work. So first I'll go to Trustee Kwan and then to Associate Superintendent Arts. So Trustee Kwan, go ahead.
Thank you, Trustee McNally, and very great question. And I'm glad you asked. I do actually plan to bring forth more direction on how that looks and how we would evaluate and compare for next year. But I, you know, for the sake of time tonight and make sure that we get through the numbers, I will be bringing that to the April board meeting.
Thank you, Trustee Kwan. And Associate Superintendent Arts, if you wouldn't mind just going over the hub model for us again.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. Sorry, my computer just flashed at me there. So the hub model would work that there would be a school that would be selected in a neighborhood where schools would then go to. A number of schools would then feed to that one school. So that would be their hub. It may be a middle school, it may be another elementary school. The schools haven't been determined, but X number of schools would feed to that hub. And then when strings happen, which would happen outside of the bell schedule, those students would travel to that school and partake in strings at that time. A common example of that would be Island Ukulele, which currently happens at Oak Bay High School. Students come from different schools to Oak Bay on Monday nights and participate in ukulele. They're not necessarily Oak Bay students who are there. It's from different schools from around the district. So there would be these 5 hubs spread around the school district for schools, elementary schools to feed into in order to do that. That's how the hub model will work.
Thank you, Associate Superintendent Arts. Trustee McNally, you had a follow-up? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So that helps my understanding. When I hear about Island Ukuleles meeting once a week, what would be the hub schedule for the people that come to the feeder school once a week?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. Through the chair, it would be 2 times a week for strings.
Thank you. Trustee Carmichael, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, to Deputy Superintendent Arts, how are students expected to get to the hub school? You know, do they walk? Do they have to get their own transportation? Obviously, the district doesn't provide it.
Yeah, thank you again through the chair. Great question. Students would make their way there themselves. So depending on where the hub was, some students may be within walking distance, maybe a school that they attend. Others would have to have transportation arranged depending on how far that is, busing or through family.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, everybody. Any other speakers to the motion on the floor? Just to clarify where we are for everybody. So what we're saying is that we would have strings funded in all but 6 schools. We'd be looking for 6 schools to have strings as a prep. The intention is to pilot this to sort of see how it goes. Further, there is an intention to bring a further motion around what that review process would look like at the April board meeting. So just for context. And then right now, the motion on the floor, the balance on the program would come from the contingency. Trustee McNally, go ahead.
Yeah, Chair, sorry, just one last question before we vote. Does this motion include utilizing the hub model?
It does not.
It does not?
No.
Okay.
Okay. So again, all the schools would be funded with the exception of, we'd be looking to identify 6 schools to have strings in as a prep to see how that actually works in practice. And then we would be looking at how it goes and then deciding how to proceed in the following school year. Okay. And so there's no hub. And the balance would be from the contingency at this point. Okay, so if we're comfortable and everybody knows what we're voting on, then I am going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion on the floor? And please, if you wouldn't mind just leaving your hands up. And that is unanimous. Thank you again, folks. Okay, so where are we? Does anybody else want to bring anything forward? Any other questions about where we're at? Maybe if we could do just a reconciliation of numbers, Secretary Treasurer, if you wouldn't mind.
When you say reconciliation, Do you need all
Yeah.
adjustments so far, or just where we're at with the bylaw and the contingency?
Just where we're at in terms of use of contingency and just a confirmation that we don't have, there's nothing else left. All the reductions have been allocated, and so now everything is coming from contingency at this point.
Yes, so we're balanced to zero. And there is 632,540 coming out of the contingency, leaving 540,273 in the contingency.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. All right, colleagues, were there any other areas of the budget that we wanted to look at here? Trustee Kwan, go ahead.
All right, one of my suggestions is to reduce trustee Pro D travel by $10,000.
Thank you.
So maybe for Trustee McNally, sorry, Trustee McNally, I'll put that in a motion that the Board of Education reduce the budget by $10,000 for trustee Pro D and travel.
Okay, yeah, with the usual preamble. The Board of Education of Greater Victoria, SD61. There we go. Wonderful. Okay, so thank you. And Trustee Gagnon, is that a second? Excellent. All right, thank you. Okay, any discussion around this? I'm going to first, before I ask trustees, I'm going to go to our stakeholders, and I'm not going to forget again. If you would like to comment on the suggested motion on the floor before trustees get into debate, then you are most welcome. No? Okay. All right, trustees, anybody like to discuss? Trustee Kwan, go ahead, and if you'd like to motivate.
Yeah, and I apologize because the other half of that would then just be, again, taking that to contingency and reducing that. So just so we're clear on that, and I'm helping the Secretary Treasurer keep track. That would be my suggestion there. So I think in times when we're looking at cuts to student services and personnel and that kind of thing, I really don't think that we all need to travel and need to go and do those Pro D. I think we can take advantage of Zoom as much as possible. So
yeah, thank you very much. Okay, would anyone else like to speak to that before I call the vote? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands, so all those in favor of the motion on the floor with a show of hands. Okay. Yeah, that's unanimous. Thank you, trustees. All right, I think we had a couple of other potential items. Yep, Trustee Gagnon, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Don't know if now is the time or not, but I am going to move that the Board of Education for the School District 61 Greater Victoria end its membership with the British Columbia School Trustees Association at the earliest possible date.
Thank you, Trustee Gagnon. Did you have a seconder? So just to clarify, the intention here is then to reallocate the membership fee. Is that right? Yeah, okay. And the membership fee, I think, is 61,000 in change. Secretary Treasurer, would you just clarify the number so we can include that?
61,660.
Thank you. Okay. All right. And sorry, who would like to second that? So, Trustee Mabobi, okay. Thank you. Trustee Gagnon, would you like to motivate?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. I would recommend that this motion be accepted because it is an expense that I feel is well within our grasp of getting rid of it. I don't want to go into too much detail, but the value compared to deliverables hasn't been readily obvious to this point. So it seems like an easy thing for us as trustees to do away with. Thank you.
Trustee Mabobi, as the seconder, you're also welcome to motivate if you wish.
Thank you. I think Derek said it very well.
All right, thank you. I don't know if our partners did want to speak to this before we get into discussion or not, but just give you an opportunity to if you wish. Okay. All right, trustees, speakers. So Trustee McNally, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I'm happy to see this motion come forward and I support it. I have brought this motion before and it didn't carry, so I hope it will tonight. I also brought a motion to ask the BCTA, the BCSTA to modify the Constitution because the Minister of Education is the honorary president. I mean, what kind of advocacy for trustees can you do when you're basically, and here I'll say it in public, in the pocket of the ministry? Why is the Minister of Education our honorary president? I really would wish for an arm's length organization, and it has appeared to me over the years that the BCSTA is not that. So I'm happy to support this motion.
Okay, any other speakers to the motion? Trustee Kwan, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a great motion. What I would really like to hear about, and I'm actually maybe looking to our chair who might be able to give us a little more information on that, is just looking at implications. So if you could give us, just a little bit of background, I think you might be the best one to speak to it.
I don't know if I'm the best one to speak to it, but I certainly have my own view. I mean, I think on the one hand, I entirely understand why there's been frustration over the years, with the association. And I think from my perspective, the difficulty is that the way that our co-governing structure works, the BCSTA is really the counterpart to the province. So like when boards are negotiating, for about educational matters at the political level, that is the association is who speaks for boards. So my concern is just if we don't have a seat at that table, it's difficult then for us to shape the dialogue at the provincial level. And I think there's a lot of room for improvement in terms of, how the association represents boards. And we're starting to see some change around that table and a slightly different way of representing boards. But if we don't have a seat at the table, my concern is that, that really is where the provincial voice of boards comes from. And so I'm not sure what we would replace it with other than, letters of advocacy and so on, which of course we could continue to do. So yeah, so with that said, I don't know how helpful that is, but it's just one perspective. Trustee Kwan, did you have a follow-up? And then Trustee Payne.
Yeah, I was just curious whether we pay for all trustees or whether trustees, whether we can hold maybe one license where one trustee could still attend. It has to be all or nothing.
Yeah, so the membership, it was like actually at the 61,000, I believe, is a discounted amount. And I think there was last year, I believe in the BCSTA budget, there was an amount, a surplus amount that gave boards basically a discount. And so actually, I think those membership fees will actually go up slightly. I don't know if it's this financial year or the following financial year, but no, there is no way to kind of just sort of say, well, we're only going to send one or two trustees, so can you give us a discount? Unfortunately, yeah, it just doesn't work that way. Trustee Painter, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to point that out, that the fees are based on the student FTE number, so that larger districts support smaller districts in a more equitable manner. My sense has been that with respect to advocacy, one of the challenges that the STA has faced, or my perception of the challenge, is that it's an organization that it represents the entire province, and we have a province that tends to largely to two different perspectives that often clash. And so when you have an organization at a provincial level that is expected to represent two diverging views, it's very difficult to move forward on any one thing. You know, there are a few issues where I believe the STA has actually been able to advocate for us, but honestly, it's been my perception that it's been more of a mechanism of enabling the ministry to communicate to boards rather than the other way around. And the last point is that even though it's called the School Trustees Association, it's really a board association. It doesn't do anything for trustees on an individual level. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Trustee Painter. Trustee Carmichael, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Having attended a one and only one conference of the BCSTA, I'm fine with leaving the membership simply because we're in no financial position this year to send trustees to lovely hotels in Vancouver. We really need to keep cuts away from the classroom like we've been talking about, and this is a very straightforward way to do that. So I will support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Carmichael. Any other trustees wish to speak to the motion? So again, what the motion is it would what we would do is withdraw our membership from the association, and the savings is approximately 61,000, and that would move into to top up the contingency. Trustee McNally, you had another thought that you wanted to share?
Just one question about how this withdrawal would be manifested. Would it be a letter from the chair?
I honestly don't know. I'm not sure how exactly that would be executed. I would have to find out exactly how it would be achieved. But
okay, well, yeah. We'll leave it with the chair.
Unless staff have an idea of how that would be achieved. I don't, but we certainly could find out.
Through the chair, if you're thinking of ending the membership before it's up in the current year, we could find out the mechanism for that. Sometimes you can't, like it's an annual fee and you don't get a refund per se, but I would assume for next year if you just didn't renew your membership. But yeah, you may want to write a letter as well to explain why. I don't know how many other districts are not members of that association.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. Yeah, so there would be some administrative work behind the scenes just to confirm how to go about doing what is contemplated by the motion. Okay, just looking to see if there's anybody else that would like to speak to the motion on the floor before I call the vote. I'm not seeing any hands. Let me know if I've just missed anybody. Otherwise, I am going to call the vote. All right, so all those in favor of the motion on the floor with a show of hands. All those opposed and abstentions, there are none. So it's unanimous, everyone in favor with the exception of me, who's opposed. And so that carries. Okay, so that's another, again, just adjustment to make. Are there any other matters that we want to move forward? Yes, Trustee Painter, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I believe it's just more of a timing issue with when the agenda package was released, but I wanted to confirm the amount of reduction for the communications program. In the package, I believe it says 80, and I think it was higher than that.
Yeah,
Was
let me
determination?
go to the Secretary Treasurer just to get the actual number, the total reduction from communications.
Through the chair, the number that is currently in the recommendation is 79,738. So yeah, that's the same number that was presented on Tuesday.
And then just to clarify there, just let me go to my notes. There's an additional amount, correct, Secretary Treasurer?
If you wish to put that on the table, we could increase that amount.
I think, was it not 79,738 and then plus 46,269? Wouldn't that be the total, those two figures?
Everything.
Yes, if you would like to go with that, I believe that would be 126,007 total.
Okay, yeah, perfect. So that's the total, Trustee Painter. Okay, thank you. And then
Point of clarification, Chair.
Yeah.
I'd understood this was a settled matter, but is the direction that we need to have a motion on that at this point? Secretary Treasurer is indicating that we do.
Okay, do we, Secretary Treasurer? Sorry, that's news to me. I wasn't aware that we needed another motion.
I'm thinking for the public record to increase that amount would make sense, and then we can reflect that on the sheet. Okay, so the motion would be then to increase reduction in communications by $46,269. Is that right?
Could I suggest that we just go to the total number and skip the math to a total of 127,000, whatever the Secretary Treasurer just said, and 7?
Yeah, that sounds good. That makes sense. Okay, who would like to move that? Trustee Manelli and seconded by Trustee Kwan. Okay, all right. If there is no discussion, I'm going to call the question. All right, all those in favor of the total reduction? And that is unanimous. All right, thank you, trustees. Thank you, Secretary Treasurer, for pointing out that we needed to close that loop. Appreciate that. Okay, so looking to my colleagues, any other areas that we want to address? I just really had a question that just popped into my mind. I want to just clarify. We are going with the staff recommendation around the ISP student ratio, correct? So, yeah, okay, great. Okay, any other motions that folks wanted to put forward? Trustee Kwan, go ahead.
Thank you. I think the next item that I'd like to deal with, sorry, I'm just scrolling here, would be under additions ongoing. And we're looking at the VP time 0.1 FTE at 5 equity seeking schools. It's 64,172. And for now on the recommended budget, it's addition delayed. What I would actually like to see, and I'll speak to it in a moment, is that same amount on there, but to be towards early years at 5 equity seeking schools. And so that would be additions for ECEs or EAs. We heard from Amy Reed, not just the other night, and I think that that would go a long ways to helping those early years in those at least 5 equity-seeking schools.
Yeah,
so
thanks
it
very
would be
much.
an addition and offset by the contingency for now.
Do we have the exact totals, just so that we can make sure that's in the wording of the motion?
Sorry, what did you need from me?
Oh, just the total amount that you're recommending.
Absolutely, yeah. So the Board of Education add to the budget 64,172 to be put towards early years at 5 equity-seeking schools. So rather than VP time, we're looking at early years.
Yeah, so ECs and EAs, yeah. Okay. Got it. Okay. All right. So do we have a seconder? Trustee David, thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to allow our partners around the table, our stakeholders, to comment first before we get into discussion. President Humphreys, go ahead.
I'm always hugely in support of people who support students more directly. I do, I know the addition is delayed, so I don't know what that will look like in terms of what that impact on the budget, but also what those VPs, you know, I do understand the push-pull of, you know, administrators and the work that they need to do as well. So I'm just curious if there's anyone here who could comment on what that will mean if those administrators don't get that time.
Yeah, no, thank you. And just to clarify, Trustee Kwong, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you're saying is that it wouldn't be delayed. It would be, yeah, so the amount would be for deployment of ECs or EAs at 5 equity-seeking schools. So yeah, and then now going back to the point that President Humphreys has made, I wonder if anybody would like to speak to that around our table that might have some insight into how that might impact administrators, superintendent, or anybody really that is placed to speak to that.
Sure, thank you very much, and through the chair. As we know, I think it's fair to say everybody is stretched. So I don't mean this is comments that one versus against the other. So just speaking on behalf of principals and vice principals, we have for elementary schools, we have very little administration time beyond a 1.0 in most of our elementary schools. Some of the larger ones may have up to 1.3 or 1.4. So equity-seeking schools, the 5 would have received 0.1 additional vice principal time, which would allow for it either for the administration time to be 1.2 or 1.3. So that's a half a day extra of time that they could support students, support parents and families, and do leadership opportunities throughout the school. So going into a very, very long list, President Humphreys, as I know you know, I think that's probably as close as what I can describe right now.
Thank you, Superintendent. That's really helpful. President Humphreys, did you want to follow up now with that additional information?
Yeah, just and again, this is, you know, I'm just commenting, but on balance, you're going to get more out of putting it towards ECs and EAs in terms of the number of people. And I understand that administrators are really stretched thin as well, but I know that we're so lacking in that EA time. And I'm less clear on exactly what EAs, you know, that integration into schools, but, you know, when I look at it, I think the EA time might be more valuable overall. But just my personal opinion. I may not be speaking for all parents at this point because I haven't obviously talked to them about it.
Thank you very much. Okay, President Massey, go ahead.
Hi there. Yeah, thanks. And I basically would reiterate what Tracy said and appreciate the motion that Karen's put forward, Trustee Kwan's put forward, because my thought exactly was that the money for the EAs or ECAs does go further than the administrators. And probably right now in those schools, some of those principals are doing chasing around those little ones doing some EA work because they're short of EAs. So, you know, it would support both of them if, you know, we were to put more of those kind of supports in the school, you know, recognizing that how important it is to have the admin in there as well. But those were just my same thoughts, kind of very similar to Tracy's. So thank you.
Thank you very much, President Massey. Okay, so I'm just want to double check we don't have any other partners that would like to speak, and if not, then I've got my speakers list I'm building of colleagues that want to speak. So Trustee McNally, I see that you would like to speak to this. You go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to be really clear about the definition of early years in this motion. There's specific funding for early years, and that's pre-K and the rest of it. We can think of early years as kindergarten, grade 1, but we need to be specific, I believe, about what we mean by early years in this motion.
Thank you, Trustee McNally. Superintendent?
Yeah, thank you very much. And Trustee McNally, thank you for that. If the board would allow, I would suggest that it be primary then instead of early years. Primary, yeah.
I think that can be a friendly amendment. I think my colleagues will agree. We all will agree that we want to be very clear in what we're trying to achieve. So thank you to the superintendent for suggesting that. Unless I see a colleague who doesn't want to do that as a friendly amendment, then of course we can go through the motions. All right, Trustee Painter, go ahead.
Yeah, just thank you. Just clarification through you, Chair, to the superintendent. The primary, is it K1 or K1-2? Just so I understand. You're muted now.
K1.
K1-2, okay.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Okay, so we're all clear. The wording will be changed to primary so that we're clear that what we're trying to do is to infuse some additional EAE or ECE resources into K-2 classrooms. Okay. All right, colleagues, would anyone else like to speak to the motion on the floor? Okay, I just want to say, I think this is a really great suggestion, and I think that it does benefit everyone, both students, and I do think that there's a benefit to administrators. I think administrators are often called upon to fill a lot of gaps, which takes them away from their core work and the leadership role that they play in the school and all the administrative duties that they have. And so obviously we do get a lot more out of the ECE and EA resource in terms of classroom supports and supports for students. So I definitely am in support of the motion, and thank you to Trustee Kwan for bringing it forward. Would anyone else like to speak before I call the question? Okay, Trustee Gagnon, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just like the motion read aloud before I vote on it. It's really the only thing.
Yeah, Secretary Treasurer, can I call on you to assist me with that?
So the motion would be Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, at $64,172 for ECE or EA primary. I can put K-2 in brackets at 5 equity-seeking schools, with the offset coming from the contingency.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so if everybody is clear on the motion, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? With a show of hands, and again, if you wouldn't mind just holding your hands up a bit longer. That's unanimous. Thank you, trustees, and thanks again to the Secretary Treasurer for recording everything for us. Okay. All right, so yeah, Trustee Kwan, go ahead.
I actually just wondered if we could get an update kind of where we're at as far as contingency and such goes.
Yeah, Secretary Treasurer, would you mind just giving us the updated balance now with the 64,172?
So the contingency balance is now at 594,030. And the reuse of the contingency, the reduction to the contingency is 578,783.
So we have 594 and 30 in the contingency?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that's the balance. Okay. Anything else, trustee? Oh, superintendent, go ahead. Oh, sorry, did I miss somebody?
No, sorry, my apology. I just want to make sure primary is K through 3, just so we're clear.
Okay. Excellent, thank you. I was thinking, but then I thought, no, I'm not the expert here. I've obviously missed something. Thank you. Okay, trustee Painter, go ahead.
Yeah, I propose that the trustees forego their cost of living allowance moving forward. It's not a significant change, but I would like to use it to signal that the board is committed to acting with restraint and that, you know, we are cutting as well where possible. So if you'd like that as a motion, that the Board of School District 61 Greater Victoria direct the Secretary Treasurer to forego payment of the 2% cost of living allowance from this point forward for trustees.
So the amount, Secretary Treasurer, would you just assist trustee Painter just with the amount? Yeah.
That would be 2,629 because the increase is not effective until January 1, 2024. So it's just for half of the year.
Stephen Nally?
So through the chair to the secretary treasurer, does that money come into the district anyway, even if we forgo accepting it?
Through the chair, no. The trustee stipends are not funded by the ministry.
Okay, thank you.
Associates Secretary Treasurer Lettner, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, I just wanted to clarify 2%. If the CPI index increases more than 2%,
oh.
Are you or is it just reduced by 2% total on a go-forward basis?
My apologies. I understood that the increase was 2%. So I was specifically referring to the cost of living allowance.
Okay,
and,
so any increase.
Yeah. And, you know, this is something obviously that we can review going forward once the budget's in more solid situation.
So right now it's 2%. Yeah.
And if I could just get clarification from the Secretary Treasurer, I understand that the trustee stipend is not supported by the ministry as like a separate line item or anything like that, but it does come from the board's general revenue, does it not?
Through the chair, yes. So it would be funded from the operating grants. And just so you know, we just estimated the 2%, the increase. So that's what's built into the budget. But as you know, like last year it was almost 7%. So it's quite conservative estimate.
Okay, so we've got a motion. Do I have a seconder? Trustee Kwan? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm conscious though, you know, there may be some of us, I just want to take a step back and, you know, realize that there may be some of us solely relying on this income, and just wanted to, you know, put that out to my colleagues that I am in favor of this, but I also know that behind the scenes, if, you know, if any of us are feeling that we take a look on how we could maybe reallocate what we are getting so that, you know, it's not being detrimental to any one of us.
Yeah, my suggestion to folks would be that, you know, we do it for the balance of the year, because I think the intention, if I'm understanding Trustee Painter, the intention here is just for the board to, in the way that we can, show our commitment to, making some reductions as well, rather than committing for the rest of the term. But because I am minded as well that not everybody is as in a privileged position to not have to rely on the stipend. And then some folks are relying on the stipend. Okay, so well, I guess do we have a seconder or no? Trustee Kwan, you seconded? Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to open it up floor to our partners first, folks. President Humphries, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll be really quick because I was going to say exactly the same thing as Trustee Kwan and yourself, and just really wanted to be aware. I think it's a great proposal, and I think that it's hard for trustees to comment on it. Maybe everybody's fine here, but it would be difficult to comment in a public space if they weren't okay with that. So hopefully there's a mechanism to talk about that behind the scenes and maybe provide support if it's needed.
Yeah, thank you. Trustee Painter, go ahead.
Yeah, and I do recognize that I am in a privileged position, many privileges, and if this was perceived as such, then I do apologize. My intention was in recognizing that we are in a leadership role in this organization, and that we need to be prepared to face the challenges of a tight budget, just as everyone else does. And if it is the preference of the board, then this is something I can withdraw the motion, and trustees can make the decision independently whether they want to go forward or not.
Thank you, Trustee Painter. Yeah. Well, I would wait to hear from colleagues. My suggestion would be that just out of respect for everybody around the board table, I know the intention is good, but that we might want to consider this after having discussed it privately with all of our colleagues, just to see about the impacts. Because I know for some folks the stipend doesn't seem like a lot, but for others it's livelihood. So okay, so yeah, I will defer to my colleagues on that, and to Trustee Painter about what he wishes to do as the mover of the motion.
I'd appreciate just a thumbs up, thumbs down if my fellow colleagues would like the time to consider this. Certainly it's something that we can address at a future time. And I'm sensing from the lack of engagement that I'll withdraw it at this time. This is something that isn't time sensitive, and we can make a decision later. So
thank you, Trustee Painter.
Provide that space for offline conversation.
Thank you, Trustee Painter. Okay, folks, let's review where we are. We are at 8:15. I want to just kind of review where we are, find out whether there's anything else that we want to address before moving into the bylaw readings. Yeah, Trustee Bayo, go ahead.
Yeah, we were going to, I'm not sure if there's any other things, but we were going to talk about that last 18,000 in the middle school music. Did we still have that to talk about?
We actually, we did amend that motion so that it was coming from our contingency. So okay. It has been covered off, so it's fully funded now. Yeah, so, and I think we might want to look at that in future once we sort of see where we're at you know, obviously, like the secretary treasurer always points out to us, the budget is constantly, it's always changing. And so when we do our revised budget too, there'll be another opportunity to kind of look at where we're at. So yeah, so that's covered. Dequan, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, a few more things that I'd like to pull. The first one would be under reductions ongoing, the second last item on the budget proposal in the agenda. It's SJ Burnside administrative time reduced to 1.4 FTE, and it's for 12,834. And I would actually like to see that removed. I know that SJ Burnside is a very important part of our district, especially to, you know, looking last year to our IED students. And so I would like to see no cuts to that. So that's as a motion that the Board of Education direct the superintendent to remove that line from the budget.
And so again, just to clarify, then that 12,000 would be would come from the contingency as well at this point. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. And a seconder, Trustee Painter. Thank you. I just want to again provide an opportunity for our stakeholders around the table to comment if they wish on the motion on the floor.
I was just going to start talking, Chair. Sorry.
No, please do. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely support that, and I thank you, Trustee Kwan, for bringing it up. I've seen the amazing work that happens at SJ Burnside, and you know, like all schools, I think they're operating pretty thin. But yeah, I don't want to see anything taken away from a school that really has a big impact on the community.
Thank you very much. All right, trustees. I don't see any other hands from other stakeholders, but if I've missed you, please just let me know. Okay, Trustee Gagnon, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted a point of clarification around that particular line item. It says, from what I can see, it says reducing it to 1.4 FTE, and I'm just wondering where it currently stands. Like, where are we reduced, or where would we have been reducing it from?
Yeah. Yeah, Superintendent, go ahead.
That would be a reduction of 0.1. So that 12,834 represents 0.1. So from 1.5 to 1.4.
Thank you, Superintendent. All right. Would anyone like to speak to the motion before I call the question? Okay. All right. Again, with a show of hands, all those in favor? Sorry. Oh, yeah, you are Trustee Bayo. I lost you. And that's a unanimous vote again. Thank you, trustees. Okay. All right. So, Trustee Kwan, you indicated that there was one more thing that we wanted to bring. Yeah, so go ahead.
A couple more things, but yeah, the next one would be again moving down to admissions ongoing, and we also delayed that collaboration time for $48,000. And my understanding from the Budget Advisory Committee that $48,000 was actually towards mental health. So I'm prepared to move a motion to increase the amount of $48,000 for mental health initiatives next year, but I'd like to clarify first, because it's under collaboration time, whether that's actually mental health or not.
Yeah, and I suspect it was Pro-D related to mental health, but I can't recall exactly. I think it was a grant, but maybe would Deputy Superintendent Caldwell be able to speak to that possibly? Sorry, Deputy Superintendent or Secretary Treasurer.
Hello, through the chair, Harold here.
Thanks.
The proposal for 48,000 was to double what the grant was, and then to support the schools with mental health supports with the 96,000, I believe, is what the total would be.
And
so, 48 from a grant and 48 from the board.
Thank you, Deputy Superintendent. And just to clarify, that is for Pro-D related to mental health.
Correct.
Is that right? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. So is everybody clear? Yeah. Go ahead, Trustee Kwan. Yeah.
So yeah, I'd like to move a motion that we do add back and we don't delay that $48,000 addition for that mental health collaboration.
Sounds good. Okay. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Trustee Carmichael. Again, I want to open the floor to our partners who may want to speak before we proceed. Okay, all right, trustees. Does anybody want to speak to this before we vote? Everybody clear on what's on the floor? Oh, Trustee McNally, go ahead.
I've got some stuff going on in the background here that I have to attend to. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
Is this money to go to Pro-D or to go to direct support for students?
It's to Pro-D, so it's a top up. So it would be just under 100,000 for Pro-D to support mental health.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Trustee Kwan, and then Trustee Painter.
Thanks. And to speak further to that, thank you for that question, Trustee McNally. I think really what we heard at the student symposium is that, you know, from the students was that, you know, they didn't feel like their teachers were equipped enough to help with that. And so I think that this initiative is still going to help students in the long run.
Thank you, Trustee Kwan. Trustee Painter, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm fully in support of that, but you know, prepared to vote in favor, but I would appreciate some sort of a presentation or note work, you know, just giving a work plan so that we can understand how the funding is being allocated so that we have a better understanding of what the district is doing in terms of Pro-D for mental health.
Yeah, maybe what we could do, Trustee Painter, is just look to have an update provided through Ed Policy once those plans have been made. That would be my suggestion. Did you want to amend the motion to give that direction? Or are you happy for that to happen during agenda setting at Ed Policy?
Yeah, I'm happy to wait for agenda setting.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anybody else would like to speak to the motion on the floor? Or has any questions related to what it would achieve? Okay, I'm going to call the question then, folks. All those in favor with a show of hands. And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Secretary Treasurer, would you mind just giving us a total, what's left in the contingency?
There is currently $533,196 left in the contingency.
Thank you very much. Okay, Trustee Kwan, when you're ready. Go ahead, Trustee Kwan, when you're ready.
All right, last item that I had on my list, and that was with regard to the communications budget. I know that we had some items in there regarding professional development, membership fees, and some other things such as contractor support. And, you know, I think in where we are right now with our deficit, I would like to see a reduction there. So my proposal would be, or my motion would be, that we would reduce expenses in that communications budget by $20,000.
Okay, sorry, Secretary Treasurer, yeah, go ahead.
Through the chair, I'm just wondering if we could have a minute just to check. There's a line item in there that says Department Services and Supplies to see how much is already coming out of communications, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
Spreadsheet right in front of me, or maybe Julie could pull that up. It's hard with the one screen.
No problem. Take your time. Let us know when you're ready. sorry, Associate Secretary Treasurer, go ahead.
Through the chair, 7,000.
7,000. So sorry, that's the amount that's already been reduced.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry for clarification. That's through the department savings reductions.
Okay. Thank you.
130 something thousand.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Okay. Trustee McNally, go ahead. Sorry, were you seconding, Trustee McNally? Were you trying to second?
If we don't have a seconder, I'll wait because I just wanted to ask a question about this.
Okay, well, why don't I let you ask your question, because I think it helps to clarify, and then
Well, why don't I second it and I'll ask the question, okay?
Okay, that works.
Okay, I'll second. So some professions require that you belong to the professional organization. So I'm just wondering if that's the case with the positions that we're considering here.
So just
Is
to
it
clarify,
possible to retain certification if one were to leave that, organization or membership group that we're talking about that has fees?
Yeah, and just to clarify, I don't believe that Trustee Kwan was suggesting that we reduce that particular line item. Yeah. So Trustee Kwan, could you just clarify the motion? Yeah, go ahead.
And actually, if I may, if we already know that it's 7,000 in that line item, then I would like to amend my motion to be 13, just to top it up to 20. So we would see a reduction of 13 in there. And yes, Trustee McNally, my suggestion was that there's a number of expenses and it's a general reduction, and staff can figure out, what we need to do it to and what we don't, and where it would be best suited.
All right, thank you for clarification. And the amendment. And so the amendment would be to add an additional 3,000, so that the total amount reduced would be 13,000 in addition to the, oh, sorry, no, is that wrong? So it'd be 20 overall. Yeah.
It would 20 overall. I think my earlier suggestion was 20, but I don't want to do 27 because we've already got 7 in another line item. So reduce the additional amount to 13,000 because we have 7 in another line.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. So that was an amendment. Do we have a seconder for that amendment? Thank you, Trustee McNally. Yep. Okay. Any discussion about the proposed amendment to the motion? All right, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the amendment to the motion? That is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Okay, we're back to the main motion. Any discussion or comments? And I'm sorry, I don't think I provided an opportunity for our stakeholders. I was trying so hard not to forget you guys. I'm so sorry. As the evening gets later, yes, just remind me if you do want to speak and I miss you. I'm so sorry. Okay, so trustees, would anyone like to speak to the motion? All right, I'm going to call the question then. All those in favor of the motion with the show of hands. And that is unanimous. All right. Thank you, trustees. Okay, so I think we've reached the end of our motions, I believe, unless I've missed anybody or don't know about anyone that wishes to bring something forward, in which case please just let me know. Otherwise, I just wonder if Secretary Treasurer, if you would mind just giving us a total so of where we've landed in terms of what is left in the contingency after that last motion.
There is $546,196 left in the contingency.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, folks, so just to clarify again, so I know there's going to be a number of advocacy related motions. Again, just to clarify, those are going to be on the regular board agenda in April. And so this evening, I think we are prepared now to move into our bylaw readings. But please correct me if I'm wrong, and there's something else we need to do before we can proceed with our bylaw readings. Yeah, Trustee Kwan, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe just a suggestion here because it's a number of us, it's their first time going through budget. I just wonder if the Secretary Treasurer has been tracking this and has something that we can share that we can just look at to see exactly which line items are in there and exactly what's on each of them.
Yeah, we can certainly pause and just let the Secretary Treasurer catch up if that's possible, Secretary Treasurer, to do tonight right now. And if it's not, we understand.
I can do it. I just need a few minutes just to clean it up.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Trustee Kwan, yeah, go ahead.
I'm actually wondering if I can suggest a quick break while with Secretary Chet does that so people can get a drink or whatever. Yeah. Alcohol or non-alcohol, I don't know.
That's a great idea. We will go and have some water and have a comfort break. Board members. Thank you so much. Can I have a motion to then have should we do a 5-minute recess? Is that okay? So we can wrap things up before 9 if we can. All right, all those in favor? And that was Trustee Kwan moving, Trustee Duncan seconding. And that's unanimous. Thank you, folks. We'll see you back here at 8:37. All right, folks, if I could just call us back to order. Okay, so wait for a few more trustees to join us. Just wondering, it looks like we might have lost a few folks. Let's just see. I just want to make sure we've got all the board members still in the meeting. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Okay. So, Secretary Treasurer, did that give you enough time to reconcile everything? Thank you. Okay. Did you want to just share your screen maybe, and then we can just go through? Yeah, thank you. All right, so Secretary Treasurer, would you mind just walking us through the where we're at, the reductions, the additions?
Okay, so the first section is the reductions ongoing. So we didn't touch the district principal district team not replaced after retirement. District principal district team being replaced as a vice principal remains the same. District team budget reduction of 85,000 remains the same. There's the district team Indigenous collaboration. So that's that shift to the GVT that's in the section below. There's Pathways and Partnerships, 10% reduction in their funding, 130,000 remains the same. Deputy Associate Superintendent's Office budget reduction of 40,000 is the same. Communications and Community Engagement budget is showing an increased amount of 126,007. And I'll just note that the additional amount of 13 I put down under Department Services and Supplies just to keep it separate. Oh, right there, Department Services and Supplies, 145,560. So previously it was 132,560. Principals at small or low enrolling schools, 63,000 savings remains unchanged. Down to reductions one time. Is that correct? Or was that intended to be ongoing? One time?
One time, yeah.
Okay. One time, 10,000. Facility services, various, 791,000 remains unchanged. District team, we have a 0.5 vacancy due to a leave of absence not being replaced, 62, that's unchanged. BCSTA annual fees, that's a new reduction of 61,660. Increased recoveries from the provincial resource program remains at 58. All four of these items remain unchanged, so shifting some costs to the new food program Community Link to free up costs in the operating grant. New LIFT funding coming in for support of EA hours at 5 schools. An increase in the student ratio, the teaching ratio from international ed. So that's funding from international ed to schools for international students in their schools. International education. So this one is actually should be changed to say reduction of the whole thing, not 1/3. This is a buildup of a carry forward and community link to free up some operating funds next year, no change. This is the shift, 50,000 usually goes to GVTA for Pro D. We're splitting that 25 and 25, with 25 being held for collaboration around the Indigenous focused grad requirements. Additions ongoing, we've got elementary strings added back with 6 schools doing prep for a total of 205,351. We have a change in custodial services, a shift from 3 afternoon to 5 daytime for a total of 346,129. EA hours increase 164, unchanged. We've added in 48,000 for mental health Pro D. We've added in ECE or EA primary K-3 at 5 equity seeking schools, 64,000. Additions, operating capital reserves remain unchanged. So we're looking at 572 to educator laptops. Just repairs for student devices at 48,000, and network infrastructure of 418, delaying 200,000 to next year. Those are all adjustments to expenses, and the relevance is that those are that total, the 1.7 million, is what will change the bylaw number. And then we have a section called surplus. So spending freeze and reserve maximums. Spending freeze is 1.2 million. Reserve maximums being reduced to 307,000 unchanged. And now our contingency has gone from 500,000 up to 626,617. So on our budget template, this is the amount of prior year surplus that will be identified as being used to balance the budget next year. In addition to the 2.2 million for the cost of living allowance that we are expecting to receive from the ministry as soon as or we can adjust it as soon as we receive formal announcement of that funding. So if we move down below, this is the 302 million. That's the number that I referenced. That's in the unbalanced budget template. And then we're making 1.7 million of expense reduction. So the new budget bylaw amount for a balanced budget is 300,728,210. And that's just a little reconciliation down here. So the deficit we were working towards was just over 3.8 million. We've offset that deficit with reductions in expenses of 1.7 and use of surplus at 2.1. And we still have unrestricted operating surplus, our contingency at 546,196.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Secretary Treasurer, for doing that on the fly. Would you mind just sending that sheet to the board so that we've got that? And thank you for clarifying our new budget bylaw amount as well. We will need that in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to move us then into our bylaw readings, folks. So again, we're going to start with a first reading. And so this is the amount. So recommended motion is that the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, 2023-2024 annual budget bylaw in the amount of 300,728,210 be read for the first time this day of 6th of April 2023. May I have a mover? Thank you, Trustee Kwan, seconded by Trustee Gagnon. Any discussion? Trustee Kwan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just quickly say that, by all means, there's things in here I think we all would like to see. We'd like to give more money in many areas, but I think for as we move through and hopefully get back on track, that there may be more money moving forward, and just to think about those areas in the next few years, and really get to a solid place where we can rebuild. And so while there's things that I would like to direct more money at, I'm happy that we've come to where we have.
Thank you, Trustee Kwan. Any other speakers? Steve McNally, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to take this opportunity to thank our Secretary Treasurer for rolling with changes and being able to provide us with information on the fly. Well done.
Thank you, Trustee McNally. Trustee Kenyo?
Thank you, Chair. There are wins in our proposed budget. There are losses in our proposed budget. I don't think any one of the trustees is going to look at this budget and say, this is perfect, we love it to death, because we acknowledge that there are cuts, and cuts are ultimately people. And it is a brutal part of trying to balance a budget when the incoming money just doesn't get the job done. And I want to acknowledge that, and just say that it's not something that I take lightly. I don't really want to speak for all of my fellow board members, but it is certainly something that comes to mind, whether it's reductions in schools, reductions at the Ptolemy headquarters, reductions throughout the district. We know that these are impacting individuals and families, and it's tough. And if I won the lottery tomorrow, I'd probably donate well, I'd cover the balance for sure. And like, no cuts for anybody, but I didn't buy a lottery ticket, so that's probably not going to happen. The point being, I understand that it's a tough time, and there's no real words that do justice when somebody is losing a job, but it's something that we aren't taking lightly. So thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Kenyo. Any further discussion before I call the question on the budget bylaw? This is our first reading. All right. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. All right, thank you, trustees. All right, I'm going to move us into our second reading. The Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, 2023-2024 annual budget bylaw in the amount of $728,210. Read a second time, 6th day of April, 2023. Again, may I have a mover? Thank you, Trustee Mabobi, seconded by Trustee Bayo. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor with a show of hands. And that is unanimous again. Thank you, trustees. All right, so now we're at a portion of our agenda where the recommended motion will allow us to move into a third reading. The outcome of this vote needs to be unanimous in order to complete our third reading this evening. So the recommended motion is that the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, agreed to give all three readings of the 2023-2024 annual budget bylaw at the open board meeting on the 6th of April, 2023. May I have a mover? Thank you, Trustee Kenyo, seconded by Trustee Carmichael. Any discussion? Any questions? Everybody clear on what we're doing? All right, I'm going to call the question then. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. All right, thank you, trustees. We can now move into our third and final reading. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, 2023-2024 annual budget bylaw in the amount of $300,728,210 be read a third time, passed and adopted the 6th day of April 2023, and that the Secretary, Treasurer, and Board Chair authorized to sign, seal, and execute this bylaw on behalf of the Board. May I have a mover? Thank you, Trustee McNally, seconded by Trustee Gagnon. Any discussion? I just, at this last juncture, want to say a couple of words. I really want to just express my gratitude to staff from across our district, both our senior leadership team who's helped us get here, and also all the staff across the entire district. Everyone has had to make concessions, allowances, some significant contributions to helping us get here. And the goal was to try to ensure that the shortfall impacted students as little as possible. I think we all would agree that we want to see more money in public education, and it's been an ongoing issue. But I think the fact that we've got here and that we're literally saying unanimous votes, and a lot of engagement from everybody around the table is a really positive indication of where we're going to go as a team and as a district. So thank you to everybody. Just want to acknowledge everybody's contributions, and thank you so much to my colleagues. Okay, any other comments around the budget bylaw before us before we do our final vote? Again, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. As the chair of the Budget Advisory Committee, I also want to extend my appreciation and thanks to everyone who has taken the time to give in their feedback throughout this process since we jumped in foot first in November. The Budget Advisory Committee meetings, the student symposium, the talking tables, the open house, for a lack of a better word, there have been many people that have shown their passion for what is a very important issue, and I appreciate all of you. It has been heartening to see just how engaged some people really are and how much we care about our students, which is what this is all about at the end of the day, is our population of students. And I think that this budget is one that has minimized cuts to programs and opportunities in closest proximity to our students. So I am going to be able to sleep with it, or sleep well. I'm not going to sleep with the budget. That's weird. But I'm going to be able to sleep well tonight if this passes, knowing that we did our best on it. But again, thank you to everybody, especially the financial team, both the Secretary Treasurer, and also Julie. I forget your position off the top of my head, but thank you to you as well.
Associate Secretary Treasurer Lettner.
And her vendor.
And her vendor, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I don't see any other hands, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor with a show of hands. And that is unanimous. All right, thank you, folks. Do we have any notices of motions at this point? I know there'll be some stuff for the agenda at the end of the month. Any notices? Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Trustee Mabobi, seconded by Trustee Carmichael. All those in favor? And again, that's unanimous. Good night, everyone. Have a wonderful, safe and happy